Welcome into another live edition of Locked On 76ers. Keith Pompey, Marc Farzetta. Free agency has started, and late last night, somebody actually told the Sixers. We'll get into that deal and what that means for the 76ers' future, including Guerschon Yabusele and ties to Tyrese Maxey, plus Summer League about to get underway. We'll get into all that more on this edition of Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we do thank you for making Locked On 76ers your first listen every day, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. This particular episode brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Keith Pompey has been covering your Sixers for about a decade and a half. I've been talking Philly sports with you for 20 years, actually, this summer. How about that? And before we go any further, Keith, I got to say this because, we're live. So I like to get the chat going. I just want to welcome Ty Vita. Haven't talked to you in a while, Ty Vita. Keith, I'm going to let you know if you haven't talked to Ty Vita. She's a hooper.
Okay, but does she have skills, though?
Like
my next door neighbor said he was a hooper. Ty Vita, do you have skills?
She has skills, man. She knows the game. She knows the game, certainly. And hi, Teacher Goat Game. I'm becoming a fan of this channel now. Hey, that's great. Great to have you on board. Keith, again, I get it from you. The Sixers made an acquisition last night. It's the first outsider brought into the fray. It's a power forward. Obviously, there's implications there when you talk about Guerschon Yabusele. Trendon Watford comes to town, power forward, formerly the Nets, an undrafted player, a hungry player, averaged 10 points a game, a little over, around 3 rebounds a game, and apparently friends with Tyrese Maxey to the point where Maxey felt the need to acknowledge the acquisition on social media last night, just saying simply, it's lit, with about 8 T's. What goes on? What happened here with the Sixers going out and getting this power forward?
I like the move. I mean, I really do. And here's the thing. They got him for value. I mean, a pretty good deal, like 2 years, $5.3 million. The thing about Trendon Watford, he's a guy that I liked for a while, right? And the reason being, even when he was at LSU, I felt like he was a really good player. And I was shocked that he didn't get drafted, right? But then he's a guy, when we talk about positionless basketball, here's a guy who's 6'9", 240. He comes in as a power forward. He could play the 3. He was initiating the offense last year for the Brooklyn Nets when everybody went down. He was basically running the point for him. So when you look at him and you see that the 76ers realized that they would have a tough time signing Guerschon Yabusele, despite a lot of people saying, oh, he bought a house or bought an apartment or whatever he did. I feel like this is another value pick. Maybe, he's not a great 3-point shooter. He shot 34% for his career. But again, with you getting him, it kind of lets you know that, unless things totally fall apart for Yabu, he's not coming back.
Yeah, it certainly seems like that. And the writing was on the wall, especially when he talked about how excited he was to test the open market. I think if you put yourself in Guerschon Yabusele's shoes, you're talking about a guy that we all know the backstory, out of the NBA for 6-7 years, plays in France, has a great Olympic run, really catches the eye of NBA scouts, gives it another shot with the NBA, comes in, works out for the 76ers, signs with the 76ers. And he put up a good year, a good, solid year of NBA basketball for Guerschon Yabusele. So, yeah, I think he has earned that right, just speaking from an outsider's perspective, not a Sixers fan base perspective. I think we're looking at Guerschon Yabusele and say, yeah, the writing was on the wall. When you're that excited about free agency after doing all you could do to help your cause in your 1 year back in the NBA, good for him. Kind of knew this was coming. And this deal here obviously solidifies that more or less when it comes to the Sixers. But I remember you wrote in your story on this subject here, Tyrese Maxey is apparently tight with the latest acquisition.
Oh yeah, they're kind of like they're really tight. I mean, they're kind of like, I don't know if they're best friends, but they're like in that group, in that circle, so to speak. It's funny nowadays. Tyrese is from Texas. This guy is from Alabama, but I'm assuming they met, growing up on the AAU circuit, whatnot,
Right.
and stayed in contact. So that's always good to get, people who you are friends with. But not only that, here's the thing I like about him as well. I mean, in addition to being Tyrese's friend, he also has that dog in him. Like, he's a trash talker on the court. We talked about that yesterday with VJ Edgecombe. Like, he's working out with people and like talking smack to the workout dudes, right? But Watford, if you go and you see a video last year, after a game against the Indiana Pacers, a lot of people thought that they had to break them up because they were fighting, but they weren't. Watford was just yapping and yapping and yapping and yapping, and it got to a point where Halliburton said to him, "But you were undrafted," and he said, "Yeah, but y'all had to get two dudes to guard me." So, right? So I in a way I kind of like that. I do, and the thing is, when we talk about what he brings, like as Bill said, he's a good passer. Right? He's a good passer. But in addition to that, seems like for the most part, even when he was with the Portland Trailblazers, there was always times where he was giving the Sixers the business. Like, and I like that. And like, the last game that he played against the Sixers, he shot 7 for 8 from the field. He had 18 points. But it wasn't like when the Sixers, or the last time, I shouldn't say he played, Embiid played against the Sixers. I mean, played against the Brooklyn Nets. He shot 7 for 8 and had 18 points. So it wasn't like the team was tanking. You know what I mean? They wasn't throwing out the G League Unite squad. You know what I mean? They didn't have a G League All-Star team. It was the actual Sixers. And he was giving them the business. So I like that. I like what he brings, coming off the bench. And for the money that they're getting, this is a solid rotation play. Now, some people might say he doesn't do much for me. Trendon Watford, who's he?
Right.
There's other guys coming off the board. Hey, I feel like for the value, he was a great pickup because of the value he brings. And also, it doesn't hurt when you are close friends with Tyrese Maxey. And that's another thing, is telling me that they're starting to build this thing around Tyrese too, getting his guys in. So
perfect transition for this then. Was it Quentin Grimes? Was he on the AAU squad or whatever? Did he run in the under 21 team? I forget. Did Quentin Grimes and Maxey play together before?
Yeah, it was. It wasn't AAU. It was USA basketball. Like, I think it was 18, U18,
18,
something like that. Yeah, U18. Yeah.
Yeah, because I had the same exact thought as you. We've talked about this basketball team transitioning to a guard-led team, Tyrese Maxey-led team, obviously. And now they seem to be in full pursuit of Quentin Grimes. And I believe you even threw the number out there yesterday, $25 million could be going to Quentin Grimes to keep him on the 76ers squad, which is a lot of money for a guy that you're not sure as to whether or not he's going to be in your starting five. And you're also looking at Jared McCain coming off the bench. And now you're also looking at a guy like Watford, for instance, joining the 76ers fray, who is also has close ties with Tyrese Maxey. Yeah, I'd say this is becoming more and more a Tyrese Maxey team. And this is on the heels of a year, Keith, where Tyrese Maxey had to be the guy to call out Joel Embiid during that meeting in Miami. So it seems as if, yes, this team is starting to turn the page more in favor of Tyrese Maxey and more in favor of the future, while still acknowledging, at least in their minds, the best bet they have to win now is a healthy Joel Embiid and Paul George. Yeah. I mean, that's it. That's what it is. But it's also the changing of the guard too. You want like younger guys, more athletic, this and that, and that's what he does. That's what he brings to the table. I mean, he's what. He's younger than Yabu too by like 5 years, or 4 or 5 years. Watford.
Watford is 25. Yabu is 29. So, that means a lot in basketball, when it comes down to basketball. And look, Yabu is like, we were saying this. Will Yabu take a mid-level exception for $5.7 million, right? And even if the Sixers gave him that, how would that impact him with the second apron? Whereas Trendon Watford, right, a guy who, who's basically, is a pretty good player, he's going to make $2.7 million this year, right? So when you factor that all in, you're saying to yourself, that's a great bargain. It's a great bargain. And I get that Yabu's a fan favorite and he does a lot of things, but when you factor in the money standpoint, I feel like you can't beat it, especially with a guy who can play multiple positions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
no, I mean, look, I like the pickup. And then when you talk about the value overall for it, again, $5.3 million over 2 years, you're not going to beat that right now. And again, yes, you are talking about a younger basketball player, and you're talking about a guy that also brings in some great versatility. The only thing, the 3-point shooting is obviously going to suffer, at least at that position, but he can do so many other things that certainly help you in that regard. And plus, I don't want to rely on Guerschon Yabusele for 3-point shooting. I want to rely on Tyrese Maxey and Paul George and Jared McCain. And I want to rely on those guys and Quentin Grimes, hopefully knocking down shots from the outside more so than a guy that is going to be more of the power forward position for the Sixers.
And I think, let me get this right. So Trendon Watford is going to make $2.4 million this year. Next season, talking about this year, 2005, 2006, next season, he's going to make $2.8 million.
Okay. Fair enough. You know what that's not, though, Keith? That's not $285 million. And right before, I want to make sure we acknowledge this in our opening segment, right before we went live, right before I hit the old go button there, Sham Charania put it out there saying that SGA just signed or reached an agreement on a 4-year, $285 million Supermax extension to remain with the Oklahoma City Thunder, as one would assume. Now, if you're SGA, if you're a human and you have the opportunity to sign a deal that puts $285 million guaranteed in your back pocket over the course of this deal, chances are you're going to sign it. But you're saying if you would have waited a year, it would have been even more money.
Yeah, a lot of times when they wait, you can get more money because it's like, because the salary cap is going to go up. It always goes up in addition to that, but not also, so there's a lot of things. Like that's like Joel Embiid. If Joel Embiid would have waited a year, he would have received more money. But sometimes like if he's a good, but you know what? For him, it was smart for him to take this money right now, right? And the reason being is he's still a young player. As long as he continues to play on a high level, he's going to mess around and probably be the richest player to ever play the game, basketball-wise. Talking about NBA salary-wise, because he's already getting the Supermax. And, some people might look at it and say, man, that's a lot of money. But the more though I look at it, the guy kind of deserves it more so than I would say with and it's not a knock on Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown, and they got the bag last year and the year before. Actually, their contracts were more than him, right? But here's the deal: he was the MVP, he was the Finals MVP. He basically swept just about every major award that you get individual-wise. He led his team to the championship. Now they did too. Tatum did as well, but at the same time, these guys don't have that trifecta like he does. So more power to him, man. More power to him.
Yeah, and I just would really want to bask for a second in that idea of the Sixers saving money somehow with Joel Embiid on this deal. That's the most optimistic take I could have on it. And it's right. You're right. You're absolutely right. It's like, wow, it could have been worse, Keith. It could have been worse.
But I honestly think about this now. Joel Embiid, let's be honest now. If Joel Embiid would have played the way he played this year and missed all those games, and then we're looking at it like, bruh, you made 19 games, you played 58 total. If Daryl Morey would have had a press conference saying we just gave Joel Embiid a max extension, people will be outside with pitchforks. Right?
Yes, we'd be crossing Delaware.
Yeah.
No one would have crossed the Delaware with that much aggression since Washington on that Christmas morning. That would have been a lot of rage from Philadelphians, no doubt about that. But yeah, Yeah, if it, one year different, you're talking about a much different circumstance there. When we come back, I do want to talk about more of the money when it comes to Quentin Grimes, the $25 million, what that really looks like, if that in fact is what the Sixers are going to offer him. And also, I want to get into what's next for the 76ers with free agency. As I mentioned earlier, you're talking about late last night, Phillies game had just wrapped up. I was just starting the Phillies postcast, and I looked down, and boom, Keith, that's where I see your tweet. That's where I see your post that the Sixers did make an acquisition with Watford. All right, we're going to break it down further when we return. This is Locked On 76ers YouTube channel. Back after this. You guys have heard us talking plenty about FanDuel, summer sports in full swing. And whether you're about the baseball diamond playing under the lights or on the greens in golf, maybe even high-stakes soccer, FanDuel, best way to make every game even more exciting. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling with FanDuel? FanDuel can get you in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned on the beach. I've been using FanDuel to track my favorite matchups, as well as the app is always fresh, always has great promotions, and always makes it fun to bet. It's easy to use, fast payouts as well. So when you win, you get that money. That's what it's all about, making that paper. Makes regular season games even more thrilling and must-watch events. Same game parlays, watching a bet right in the ninth inning, whatever it might be with FanDuel, it makes the action so much more exciting. New to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5. That's right, bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com. So when you were mentioning, Keith, yesterday, the desire for the 76ers to bring back Quentin Grimes, to continue to build this team more so around the guard position, a number was given, about $25 million around that for Quentin Grimes. And that has started a whole kerfluffle, if you will, Keith. How do you get on $25 million when you talk about Quentin Grimes?
Look, man, I'm not mad at him. I'm going to be honest with you. And I mean, because here's the deal. Like, is he going to get it? Probably not. Maybe not. But at the same time, like, if they're telling you, if everybody's saying he's worth anywhere from $15 to $20 million in free agency, right? That's what people were saying. He's worth anywhere from 15 to 20. Well, if I'm his agent and they're him, I'm saying, well, look, bro, like, we're not going to ask for 17.5. Like,
yeah, right.
Go above. Right. And if there's somebody willing to give it to you, then if somebody's willing to give you that money, then like, okay, let's take it. If not, we'll get the best deal. And then also you're hearing it like the 76ers saying we really want him back. We really want him back. Well, like if y'all want him back, and if somebody offers that, then let's think long and hard about bringing him back. And if you do, my man has $25 million. So I'm not upset with him. It's kind of like when you go for a job interview and they ask you how much money you want, you always say more than you expect to get. You know what I mean? Like, dang, they went for that. So I'm not. Now, a lot of people are looking at it like, what is he talking about? Look at the salary cap. Maxey is making 37. You got Embiid making 55, Paul George making 51. That's a lot of money. I get all that. But at the same time, if you don't ask, you're definitely not going to get it. So yeah. I'm not upset. I'm not really upset with that. But I will say this. Some of those teams like the Brooklyn Nets and other squads who were like pursuing him, they made some moves yesterday. So then that kind of factors into the prospects of him getting that big payday, right? So if I'm him, I'm kind of looking like, please don't nobody sign somebody else. Please don't sign anyone else. I got to get paid. I have to get paid.
So I look at it like this. Andrew Nembhard, everyone wants to talk about the finals. And everyone's like, oh, that's how you win? Then just mimic whatever happened in the finals. So Andrew Nembhard was a year after Quentin Grimes. Andrew Nembhard was a 31st overall pick. Quentin Grimes was 25th, I believe, the year before. And you're talking about Nembhard making about $19 million, $18 million. Quentin Grimes, I think, would be around that 20 million range if he signs a new contract this offseason. That, to me, makes a lot more sense. And one thing I always do try to keep in mind is that it is, as you're pointing out, always part of the negotiation. No agent's going to be in there and be like, what's the guess? What's the educated guess? Well, what's the hypothesis as to what he's going to get? Okay, I'm going to go for $5 million more than that. Then just see what we get. That's called being an agent. That's called the business side of basketball. And when it comes to Quentin Grimes, I ain't mad either. This guy, look, every great athlete always reminds the athletes that are trying to make a name for themselves. When you step on your surface of play, whether it's the court, the field, whatever it might be, the ice, you got to take advantage of that opportunity. Quentin Grimes got a phenomenal opportunity with the 76ers when he was acquired at the deadline. And then the team just said, we're packing it in. We're all about the tank. We're all about making sure we keep that first round pick, which of course turned into third overall. We're all about keeping it. So, hey, if you want the opportunity to go out there and show on paper what you could do, or show on the court what you can do, and pad the stats if you want, go out there and do it. He earned every right to ask for $25 million. I have no doubt in my mind about that. I don't think he gets it. I think the more practical deal would be around $20 million a year for Quentin Grimes, not 25. Is that a fair assessment of the situation?
Yeah, it's a fair one. I mean, but at the same time, he did raise his stock up. But again, some people are going to argue, bro, you did it while the Sixers were tanking. But he's going to say, bro, I had 2 games of 40
yeah,
right? And I mean, I was giving everyone, I was giving people the business. But you're right. Like Andrew, he's a year younger than Andrew Nembhard, right? At 25, you look at it, he'll say, yeah, well, Andrew Nembhard comes in and his job is to provide D and do some other things. Well, my job is to basically come in and put in work. Like, like I can come off the bench, get easy buckets. I can guard. I can do a lot of different things. So, yeah, you're right. But that's a pretty good comparison to a way a team would utilize you. The only thing I would argue is that I think where Andrew Nembhard, before Halliburton went down, Andrew Nembhard could say, I'm battling for the third best player on the team, right? That role, I'm battling. The thing about that is, depending on how they utilize Quentin, he at best he'll be 4th option, maybe even drop down to 5th, 6th option. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the one argument where you're like, bro, you're not going to get that money. Whereas Nembhard, he comes in, he does what he has to do, but he's he has an extremely important role to the team's success.
You know what else he is? While we're on this, he's also a starter.
Yep.
So, I mean, like we said yesterday, when you mentioned the number 25 million for Grimes, I said, I mean, that's starter money. Yeah, you're not coming off the bench.
Yeah.
25 million. So then you're talking about McCain on the bench. You're talking about Kelly Oubre most likely on the bench. You're talking about VJ Edgecombe on the bench. That's a pretty packed bench. Because you're certainly not putting a guy at 25 million riding the pine.
Yeah, that's a bad investment. I mean, think about it. I mean, no. I mean, honestly,
I agree.
See, and you're right. So when what's the Al Horford? When Al Horford was here, like everyone was killing that contract, right? People were killing it because Al Horford, he couldn't play on the court when Embiid and Ben Simmons were on there, when the 3 of them, right? He looked horrible. Now, when one of the other 2 were off the floor, he looked okay. So essentially, you were paying all that money, $20-something million a year, for a backup center. That's what he was. So if you give Grimes that money, man, you have to start him, I think. Because if not, he's not going to live it down, especially if he struggles.
Oh, man. I'll never forget. I interviewed Al Horford at an event. And, the question, and I didn't like the first answer he gave, so I found a different way to ask the question, why Philadelphia? And each time I tried to rephrase it and get it something different for a little bit more info, it just came back to, man, they threw a lot of money at me. Like
that's what he kept saying.
It was along those lines. It was along those lines. It was like there was no substantial answer for Philadelphia, just leading me believe that they just took a wad of cash and just threw it at him. He's like, "Yep, that's that." It was kind of it was the way he was answering the question. This isn't a quote, but it was the way he was answering the question. It was just like he was dumbfounded to be in Philadelphia, meaning the only reason he signed in Philadelphia, I was led to believe, was a whole lot of that bag, as the kids like to say.
Yeah, he messed up. He should have just said, I would have lied. Because his mom lived in Philly, right?
I didn't know his mom lived in Philly.
Yeah, his mom lived in Philly. Like, so he has family members here and stuff like that. I would have been like, hey, I just want to be closer to my mom. I know everybody talks about the money.
Never came up.
The thing about the NBA, and maybe it's this way in all sports, but you never make a decision solely off of the bag. You just don't. I mean, you look at Paul George, right? Paul George came here because what? He can say what he wants about, I want to win a championship with Joel and all this and that. Nah, dude, you were established out there in the Clippers with the Clippers, right?
Mm-hmm.
He came here because they gave him more money than any other team. And when you do that, it tends to go left. And the same thing for Al Horford, too, because you're thinking about money. You're not thinking about fit. You say you are, but at the end of the day, the main thing is making that moolah. And I have yet to see that work out. Look at Tobias. I love Tobias.
Right.
But Tobias came here. He got 180. I felt Tobias was a better player than people gave him credit for. But at the end of the day, he was judged for making 180. And everyone killed him for it. So when you base it off of money, it never goes well to me. Never.
And mix in a little smattering of he's not Jimmy Butler, and that also doesn't help things out.
Yeah, but that was a joke too. I can't believe Jimmy did him like that, because Jimmy knows deep down inside, everybody knows it was they basically chose Jimmy over. No, they chose Ben Simmons over Jimmy, because Ben probably wasn't going to re-sign here or accept the extension, whatnot. He would have been a free agent and would have been out. That's what it was. Is so. But it sounds great when you say they chose Tobias over me. But deep down inside, it was Ben Simmons, bro.
Right. Like, absolutely. I agree. When he did walk off the court at the then Wells Fargo Center, when he did walk off the court saying that, I was like, is that really? I know that's what it came down to. It was a great soundbite. I played the hell out of it.
It's a great one. Yeah.
I played the hell out of it. All right. Quick hit right here. We'll be right back after this. I told you it was quick, and we're back already. Keith, when it comes to Summer League, a training camp starts up, today? And then there's a question out there about Jared McCain. Would you potentially play Mr. 23-game Jared McCain in Summer League to get him ramped up for the regular season? Is he even ready for that? Where are we at?
No, I wouldn't play him. I mean, nah.
Neither would I.
What I would do is I would probably have him travel with the team. If he can, supervise him in some workouts, like if he's able to do some like 5-on-5, if he is, I don't know if he is or not, but do certain things like that. But I wouldn't push him. It wouldn't be all out 100%. I mean, I'm pretty sure he wants to get back out there, and now who knows, maybe. But at the same time, to me, the season means much more. Like he needs to basically be ready for the season and continue this process. We're not naive enough to know that what these guys typically do, they go to LA and they do Rico Hines open runs as a team. He's going to get ample opportunities to do stuff like that, right? To play in that type of setting, not a game setting, but we got to realize him playing in the summer league is nice, but after 3 days of watching it, you get bored, because the best players on the team are like the first round pick rookies for the most part, or guys who've been in the league for a couple years. But for the most part, they're like G League guys and they're dudes from overseas, right? Nah, it's like if it was me, I would just say we got to get you 100% ready for when the regular season happens. You don't want another Joel Embiid situation.
But we will see VJ Edgecombe and Janai Broom, you think?
Yeah. Like, if they sign that contract, you definitely going to see them. But I think they will sign by then. But we'll see them. We'll see them.
That's what I figured. All right, last question I have for you. Obviously, free agency is going on right now. That's why we want to make sure we're live and get as much run as we can before something else happens here. Other than Yabusele not coming back, Quentin Grimes hopefully re-signing, is there any other breadcrumbs the Sixers are dropping to you when it comes to a direction they could be headed next?
When we look at the Sixers right now, what is it? There's 15 roster spots, right?
Mm-hmm.
On the regular roster. So at this particular time, they already have like 9 guys.
Right.
So they have 9. So when you factor in, you're talking about Grimes, that's going to be 12, right? I don't really see a lot of major moves for them. You know what I mean? Now, maybe if they can make a trade or something like that, then they can bring it in. But I feel like, they're going to be getting these low-level guys. Let's say, and now here's another thing. Kyle Lowry, we expect him to come back. So right then and there, that's 13. If Eric Gordon comes back, that's 14. So, I know a lot of people yesterday at 6 o'clock, they were like, what are the Sixers going to do? Well, this is completely different than last year. They already have their big 3 and they have these other players in there. So, we're not going to, I don't think anything could happen, but I don't think that it's going to be the fireworks that everyone is expecting. I think they're just trying to get role players in there that can help this team. Everything is, their success is predicated on what Joel Embiid can do, how healthy he is, if Tyrese Maxey can take another step forward, and if Paul George can go back to playing like the Paul George of 2 seasons ago. Yeah. That's what the success depends on.
Yeah, I have this feeling that this upcoming season, the greatest acquisition the Sixers are going to have is a change in philosophy. Yeah. And that's a guard-driven team and not a big man-driven team. I mean, specifically a Joel Embiid-driven team. I'm bracing myself for that, and it's what I expect. I do expect him to sign Quentin Grimes. I don't expect Guerschon Yabusele to come back, and I'm expecting, as we've said almost every show we have done together for the last month, Keith, the health is just something we're crossing our fingers for. I consider it to be a drop of hope in the ocean of disappointment. Keith Pompey, my friend, always great catching up. I know you got to get over there to training camp getting underway today for the 76ers Summer League. We appreciate everyone joining us in the chat. I do want to get one or two in here. Who was it? Oh, I saw it earlier. Oh, I forget. Somebody had the question in there regarding Jimmy Butler over Ben Simmons, but I thought that was kind of known that that's really what it.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I'm just going to say this real quick. So people remember, like in the playoff series, in the playoff, both of them against Brooklyn and against Toronto.
Yeah,
Jimmy essentially was the unofficial point guard.
Yeah,
and they had Ben Simmons playing in a dunker position, and Ben wanted the ball. He really wanted the ball. And it was one of those things where Ben had some power, so to speak. And, I don't think he liked the fact that he didn't have the ball in his hands. And Ben was up for an extension. And a lot of people were thinking, they were, there are certain people that sources said that, Ben's family didn't like the fact that Jimmy had the ball, so that's where it was. That's where it came down. And you look at Jimmy, Jimmy was older. You did have Tobias, a guy you could fall back on, but it was more so like, I think that Ben was an all-star. Everybody thought he was going to be a future Hall of Famer, the whole 9. So they went with him. That's what happened. And then
go ahead. I was just gonna say, hindsight's a beautiful thing, but at the time, I don't know too many people that would have chosen Jimmy over Ben Simmons.
Nah.
At the time, Very
at
important
the
to
time.
say
But
that.
the crazy part was, I mean, this whole thing was crazy because think about that. And I hate bringing up stuff from the past, but I remember they had a press conference after they signed Tobias, Boban, and Mike Scott.
Yes.
And Josh Harris was there. And he came out and said, we intend to bring this team back. Because you realize when you make a trade like that so late in the year, even though it's right before the trade deadline, that team typically is when you make a major trade like that for bringing a guy like Tobias, you typically don't have enough time to win a championship. Now, you can bring in one piece, but you already have your core. Like some people could say Toronto, but Toronto already had, their core pieces. They just brought in Marc Gasol, right? Marc Gasol. So when you look at it, I'm like saying to myself, this team is a year away. They're going to win the championship. I literally thought they were going to win the championship the following season if everyone stayed healthy. They had a whole season together, and JJ Redick is gone. Jimmy Butler is gone. They bring in Al Horford, and you're saying yourself like, "Dang, what happened? Y'all said y'all were bringing everyone back," and so to me, it was wild because you gave up, Dario, Covington, Jared Bayless, all these guys for Butler. You know what I mean? You gave them up. So, and then JJ Redick fit in perfectly with that group because he could just run. He could run around. He could just run around and get open shots. And that dribble handoff he had with Embiid was like unstoppable. So to me, that when I look back, that was the worst decision that they made was breaking that team up. I mean, seriously,
I agree.
The worst decision. And I know it's years.
No, I was just gonna say when I tell my grandchildren one day when they ask me about the process, okay, I'm gonna say there's a man named Jimmy Butler, and he was the one card in the house of cards that you couldn't remove, and it all came tumbling down after he was gone. That's
crazy.
That's what I'm going to go back to, man. Keith, I know you got to get over there. Everyone be following Keith, of course, on social media for updates on the 76ers throughout free agency and what their next move could possibly be. And also status of Jared McCain. What's that going to tell us about the Summer League and the upcoming NBA season? For Keith Pompey, I'm Marc Farzetta. Thanks for joining us for this live edition of Locked On 76ers Free Agency Special. We'll be back with you guys tomorrow to break it down even further. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure you guys like and subscribe to Locked On 76ers. Catch you guys tomorrow.